Okay, hello and welcome, fight fans, to something new we're bringing you here at Cage Warriors Academy. We're going to start doing post-event review shows, and that's what we're going to do here. I'm Mark Heath. I'm the play-by-play commentator. I get very excited sitting alongside Nick Albert, and I was very excited at this most recent event, Academy Show 35, which we're going to talk about in due course. First of all, I'm going to introduce the two people with me to break it all down. First of all, I can only start with a man I like to call the OG, Jack Mason, one of the kind of legends of British MMA. I'm sure you wouldn't call yourself that. Had about 1 million fights. Also now a promoter, a trainer, head coach at BKK Fighters. Jack, how are you? It's a week has gone since this event, so hopefully the stress levels have calmed down a bit. How are you, and how do you reflect now a week after this event?
Yeah, it was brilliant. Having looked back on the event and being part of it, it's cliche, but it was definitely our best event today. The production levels have just gone up and up every time we do it. You know, our partner, We Capture, they just pulled out all the stops. Like Ben Kerman, who's the boss there, he pulled out all the stops for us. Create this fantastic video board that all the fighters were sort of walked through and walked out, and the visuals were just amazing. And then all of the sort of event staff just ran it like clockwork. It was probably the least stressful event I've ever been involved in. It was unbelievable, and it's just like a testament to the team that involved. And it's just a great platform now that they're really proud of. So yeah, it's been brilliant.
Superb. And obviously there were some great fights we're going to talk about, kind of individual fights in a minute. Also joined by Katie Hunter of MMA UK. Also, I guess I'd call you a super fan as well as a journalist, Katie. You're obviously there. You've covered a lot of these events. How do you now reflect on it a week later?
Yeah, I thought it was the best event yet for all the reasons Jack said, but also the matchmaking on the card, not to blow even more smoke up Jack. And the fighters delivered as well. You can get great fights on paper, but it depends what happens in the cage. And we saw some really exciting stuff there last Saturday.
100% we did. I think the only place to start clearly is going to be the main event. You talk about matchmaking, and that is a great point, Katie. I would say one of the trademarks of these shows are you can't really look at any fight and know who's going to win. And that's not the case with a lot of shows you go to. You kind of already have an idea who's going to win. These fights are so well matched, and in terms of well matched, the main event between Alex Andrews and Jacob Gifford, on paper, I think it looked like one of the best amateur fights you would see anywhere this year.
Yeah.
And my only frustration, Kate, I'll start with you on this one, is it wasn't like longer. 3-minute rounds. It felt almost too short because they were so well matched. And 3 minutes isn't that long to kind of separate two guys that are that close in terms of ability. What did you make of it?
I thought they were two of the top in their weight class in certainly the UK coming into this. And I think they both proved it. And I think how close it was, just shows how good they both are. And I don't think anyone's stock value went down in that fight.
No.
Jacob obviously came away with the win and that's great for him. But it really showed how elite amateurs can be, I think. And I was really proud that it was on this Cage Warriors Academy card, because I always say this is the best show, and I think that main event really was testament to that.
Yeah, you say there, Jacob obviously had his hand raised, unanimous decision over 3 rounds. Jack, in a nutshell, this fight kind of encapsulates, I guess, the ethos of the show, doesn't it? You've got two incredibly high-level amateurs, not worried about protecting their records, just going out and fighting each other and putting on a great show.
That's it. It's such a privilege to have these, the teams that we work with, and all of the teams that we work with know what the show's about. It is about giving these amateur fighters the chance to test themselves against the other best amateur fighters. It's always a 50-50 fight, and they know what they're signing up to. And that's what I mean. Like, it's a privilege because it's not the same everywhere. There are lots of teams or fighters that want to protect their records at amateur, which is not the point of the amateur career. You need to be testing yourself. You need to be, the whole point of it is, as a fighter, you want to be confident going into your pro career that you have the skill set and all the attributes to then make it as a pro. Because the pro career is not it's not easy at all. To make money out of a career and all that type of stuff, you need to be consistent. You need to have the results. You need to have a fan base. All those types of things. And our event is where you prove to yourself that you can do that. Okay, so you can go into amateur career your pro career being confident and be able to back up everything that you need to be able to back up when you go pro. And that's what we've seen that. We've seen it. The proven pathway is kind of proven now. In the our amateurs, our champions are then signed to Cage Warriors as a pro, and they develop they do their pro career there. They might have the first couple of pro fights on our event, and then move on to the big show. But it's a proven pathway. It's working really well. But as I say, it's a privilege to be involved with the teams that actually want to be part of that and have their own ethos. So it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I'll just pick up on your point about the 3 rounds. I think I completely agree. I was actually able to sit down and watch that fight between Alex and him, and it was a fantastic fight. It's back and forth. 3 minutes in a round is not a lot of time. When coaching the amateurs, you have to explain to them you haven't got that time to sort of feel things out really, or you got to know what you're going to do and get to it because as I say, not much time. And some of these fights on the event, they were phenomenal fights, but it's like it did. Some of them felt like they did need a 5 rounds. And we're thinking about implementing that only for some specific fights. But I think that would really, really be a great addition to our format. And yeah, we'll see how that one goes.
Sign me up. I'd watch that over 5 3-minute rounds again. It was a great fight. Jacob Gifford, obviously, with his hand raised, he moves to 5-1. Alex Andrews drops to 10-3, but 2 of the real kind of top level amateurs at that weight, featherweight in the country. And speaking of which, Jack, I'm going to do a bit of matchmaking now, my friend, because the co-main event, Mason Kinsella wins the European featherweight title. He moved to 6-0. Yeah. So immediately I'm thinking, well, Jacob's the same weight. It could be a fight in the future, perhaps. Talk to me a bit about Mason, though, because in my notes for comms, when I go back and watch fights and stuff, I've written Mason Kinsella, good everywhere. Can you tell us a little bit about Mason as a fighter and how good you think he can be?
Yeah, so for Mason, it's hard to explain it to people that don't understand it in a lot of detail, but Mason gets it. He gets the whole sport. He gets the building the fan base. He gets the preparation aspects. Gets the mental aspect. He gets everything. So he's he's got a very high level skill set. He's a tough guy. He's knowledgeable about building a fan base and putting on a show when he fights. And he's also a fighter. He really wants to do it as well. So it's a privilege to be able to work with him actually. And I think he's going to go on to do some great things. If he keeps doing, putting the hard work in like he does, I can't see any reason why he couldn't be top tier in the world in the professional ranks. In a few years to come. And I would say exactly the same thing as Jacob Gifford. He's not from my team. He trains with he's one of Walter Gahaz's proteges and trains with him in Southend and also trains out GB top team. And under Brad Pickett and Ashley Grimshaw, and he's got phenomenal mentors and coaches there. And he is also another young guy that has dedicated. He's got really good backing. His dad really supports him, and he's super dedicated, super talented, and he also gets the sport as well. So he's another one that's going to be go on to do great things. He's superb talent. As for those two fighting, on paper it makes sense, right? But those two grew up together, trained together. They've known each other since they were kids.
Okay.
So they're from the same area. They're not going to fight. They're really good friends. There might be some from separate teams, but they actually train together in Southend as well during the week. Some nights of the week. So those two won't be fighters. So we're going to have to find them some other quality opponents from elsewhere.
I'm sure you will. That's a shame. That's going to be the one that got away then. Katie, you've obviously seen Mason fight a lot. As Jack says there, he's also on top of all the stuff he does in the ring. He's got it outside of the ring. He's got the fan base who's basically
Yeah.
sung into the ring. Sweet Caroline, which is always a classic fight song, I guess. What do you make of him as a fighter?
I just can't believe how wise he is for how young he is. He, Jack says he gets it and he takes it really, really seriously. Just all aspects, whether it's his nutrition, the mental side of it and the visualization. Just every time he talks to me, it's about something new that he's done for this camp, and he's just taken it so seriously for somebody of such a young age. And that just always really impresses me, because I know what I was like at that age. I wasn't serious about anything.
Yeah,
He's just so dedicated, and I think when you've got talent and dedication together, the sky's the limit.
absolutely. So Mason, just to kind of go over the stats from the fight, he won by first round rear naked choke against Carlito Ramos. He moves to 6-0, and just in terms of him being good everywhere, I believe that was 3 wins by submission and 2 by stoppage. So of those 6 wins, 5 of them have come before the end, and in a kind of mixture of ways as well, which is just a display of how well-rounded he is. I'm going to stick with you, Katie, for the next fight, which is another good one. And in my job as a journalist, we always talk about narrative, especially in sports, narrative. And there's lots of narrative around Christian Young going into this fight for the flyweight title. He's a popular guy, but he's also got a great backing story, because he broke his leg really badly in training last year, one of these kind of freak injuries. It wasn't just in quote marks, a normal leg break. I believe it was a compound fracture. So bone comes out the leg. And he's got himself back. I believe at one point there was even a question as to whether he's going to be able to fight again. I mean, clearly a serious injury. He's got himself all the way back. He fought for the belt a couple of shows ago, came up short, then fought again in Grays, got back in the win column, and now he goes back in for the belt, and he wins with his first ever TKO against Ala Chiavi in the first round. It was great to watch, and he's a wonderful story, isn't he, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, he's such an easy person to interview and to get his story across, because he just makes it really easy. Like you said, there's so many talking points, and you'd have to have a heart of stone not to be delighted for him. But he's another person. You're going to hear it about all of the fights probably that we talk about, because they wouldn't have got to where they are and be beating the people they are without taking it seriously. But he's been training as a professional for a long time, even though he's still an amateur. And not winning the title broke his heart, but he was determined that that he was going to get that belt. Then as soon as he's got it, he's talking to me about, but this isn't the real belt. I want the main Cage Warriors belt. Like, his sights are set super, super high, and he obviously trains at the Combat Institute with James Webb. He's very, very dedicated to his craft. And yeah, it's a story that when he does have the Cage Warriors flyweight title, they'll be saying about this leg break that he would have been lucky to walk again, let alone fight again. They'll be saying it then. And for someone who's actually from Australia to have that huge of a fan base in Colchester is quite impressive as well, and testament to his character and how likable he is outside of the cage. He's always there for his teammates as well. I love to see that camaraderie between the gyms, people who go down when they're not fighting. They all go down en masse to support their teammates. It's just such a really good vibe.
Yeah, I believe I'm right in saying not just a leg break. I believe earlier in his career, Christian almost severed his thumb at work as well.
Yes, that was at work. Yeah,
yeah, he's maybe a bit unlucky or lucky. I don't know how you play
or
what
clumsy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to move on now to a different fight, Jack. Because I want to talk to you about Ben Edwards, who won the welterweight title on this. He moved to 5-0. Ben is one of these guys, I think, who he can sort of fight. Me watching him anyway, you tell me more about him, but he's able to adapt to whatever the situation needs. He can either be kind of scrappy if he's fighting a technician, or vice versa if need be. What can you tell us about Ben as a fighter?
First thing I'll probably say is consummate professional.
Yeah,
like his preparation is just like second to none. Like every stone, there's no stone unturned, and he just everything. Like this is what you want, especially as a coach. But you want to find these gems, these guys that are they're, number one, they've got great skill set. They're easy to teach. If you're in an MMA, you're an MMA fighter, you've got to be tough as well. So he's all of those things, but he's so dedicated. He's the first one in the gym, last one out of the gym. He's just, he's learning from, he's picking up tips on, preparation and stuff from Arnold, seeing what Arnold's doing. But he's just a consummate professional, but he's also very tough. But he's just working very hard to improve in all areas, and can't say more about him. He's just like he's working with his boxing coach, Thai boxing coach, resting. He's at every session, can't get him out of the gym, and this is what he's he's a fireman, but this is what he's really focused on. This is what he dreams. He dreams of doing some big things in the sport, and I really think he can do.
Yeah, he got his hand raised. Unanimous decision. He beat James Hale for the welterweight title. The first time I was super impressed with Ben was when he fought Tommy Reed, who obviously comes in as a proper top level kind of boxer, amateur boxer, and had looked amazing on his debut. And then Ben kind of comes in and is obviously cognizant of that threat, but turns it into the sort of fight that it needed to be for him to win. He took away that from Tommy and ended up, I believe, stopping him ground and pound. Have you been impressed with Ben, Katie?
Oh yeah, and I also loved the last fight with Rob Earls as well.
That's right.
Oh, that was fight of the night for me. And
that was a really good learning fight, wasn't it? Because Earls is a bit of a veteran, so he knows all the kind of tricks and that kind of stuff. Oh,
and Rob was coming to win, and he was so tough in that fight. And I just think those three performances on their own, they're just he's growing from fight to fight. Yeah, he's very, very impressive, and he's so modest as well. Whenever I try and give him a compliment, it's because of somebody at the gym. He's always thanking his team, thanking teammates. He's just great person.
Superb. Right, I'm going to skip through a few fights now because I want to get a bunch more in. So, in terms of other fights that we saw on the night, Shaq Matalamov won the 165-pound title. We're calling that super lightweight, Jack, that belt.
Yeah, that's
super lightweight.
Super
lightweight. Yeah, so Shaq won that. He got submission of the night, first round guillotine win over Claude Younger. Norbert Peterzak, the big heavyweight, he moved to 5-0 and defended his title, beating Daryl John in the third round with a TKO. And this is a guy I really want to talk about. European title at welterweight, and he got performance of the night. Ule Tandir, who on paper, when I was researching the fights, I looked at his record, 19-2, and thought that is fairly remarkable for an amateur fighter. And he was in there tough against Nathan Lambert, a guy who's 9-3 himself. But Jack, I don't know if you saw him, I hope you did, but Ule Tandir looked absolutely sensational on the way to winning. Fantastic striker, got the kind of flash as well, the character. He looks to be a real talent.
Without any hyperbole, him versus Lambert was genuinely probably the two of the best welterweights in Europe, amateur. And Tandir, what a superstar! That guy brought an army from France. They flew over. They went to celebrate in London the next day. He's got a huge fan base, in France, and there's a reason why he's flamboyant. The guy, I've not seen a guy without sunglasses on. Super flamboyant. He's a real character, and man, the guy can fight. We had quite a bit of contact from some big shows straight after that fight, wanting to sign him. So I expect him to go on and be signed and go. I think he's speaking to his team. I think he plans to go pro later this year. I expect him to be a superstar in the next couple of years.
Absolutely. Remember that name, Ule Tandir. He's now not 20-2 as an amateur. And I think I'm right in saying he's won 16 fights in a row, all in pretty impressive and dominating way. Do you want to talk about any of those? Sorry.
I think it was in the last year.
Yeah,
to be,
he's been fighting kind of at these tournaments where you fight multiple times a day, hasn't he?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's very, very impressive indeed. Katie, do you want to talk about any of those, either Ule or Norbert or Shaq?
No, all I was going to say about Ule is I think it would be impossible to keep matching amateur, and I'm a bit worried for him at pro. So, yeah, good luck.
Honestly, it's kind of a blessing as a matchmaker that he's thinking about going pro, because you know, to match him at amateur again, I just don't know if there's anyone else there. You know, I think it's time to go pro for him.
Yeah.
One big fight which we haven't talked about is Carl Mullins versus Rockville. Man, that guy hits hard. He's got concrete in his hands, and like just from the first his previous fight, he's fighting a very tough fighter. And it wasn't going his way. He landed one punch on the guy, and he was out cold. And I think, and this was exactly the same thing. Hans Rockvall, who was challenging for the title, he comes in with a Greco wrestling pedigree. You know, training at Frontline Academy with Jack Hermanson and lots of other top level athletes. And I thought he was going to be a real problem for Carl, and Carl just caught him with one shot first, and it was the end of the night for Hans. It was it was a really impressive performance for Carl.
Absolutely. I mean, that was on the first portion of the card. There were kind of two cards, weren't there? So the first card was shown live on TV in Norway, and obviously also on pay-per-view. So that's on Direct Sport, and you've got a lot of the Frontline Muay Thai fighters on there. Clearly, that's an iconic gym in that neck of the woods. But Carl Mullins, as you say, beat Hans Lovkol in the first round. Moved to 3-0, all 3 wins by stoppage. And if you looked at power in the dictionary, there'd probably be a picture of Carl Mullins, because that is essentially what he is. And you say, I mean, apart from maybe this fight, certainly his first 2 fights, we've seen him a little bit in sort of trouble. But he's got that kind of equalizer, hasn't he, Jack? That the old cliche is you can't teach. You know, he just has that power.
The scary dude. I wouldn't be. We've got something lined up for October for him, but he's a scary dude. There's not going to be many guys queuing up to fight him, I shouldn't think.
No, well, we'll get on to October the 5th in a bit, because I want to throw forward to that as well. We've finished, but Katie, talk to me about Cameron Stewart as well, who was also on this Norwegian portion of the card. He became a champ, winning the Nordic title at welterweight. He's already the lightweight champion.
Yeah,
and he looked, ever since he's won the belt, every fight he seems to be getting better. I was incredibly impressed with him against Kadri Dean when he defended his belt last time out, because Kadri is massive, like gigantic for the weight, and Cameron dealt with him really well. And again, he looked really impressive here, and I believe now he's going to turn pro.
Yeah, I think I was really, really shocked that he was going up to 170 because for that fight, because I don't think of him as the biggest lightweight. And so for him to finish that fight with his hands, I just think his opponent did look big.
Yeah.
to be able to show your power at the weight class above in amateur gloves, I just think he's really, really impressive. And yeah, he'd already impressed me. I didn't really think he had anything left to prove at amateur, but I guess the way that the timings worked out with when he's going to turn pro, he wanted to get one more in, and what a way to do that. And like you said, he's now champ, following in the footsteps of Tommy Brunnin from his gym, who was champ at Cage Warriors Academy as well. I just think, like a lot of these people were talking about, he's the full package. He's so charismatic when he's on camera, completely charming outside of the cage, absolute killer inside of it.
Absolutely. There's another name to remember then as he turns pro. And in terms of professional, Jack, there was one pro fight on the card, which was the main event of the Norwegian card, which we saw Joshua Onwardi defend his super lightweight title for the first time. There's a tough fight, tough opponent, OJ Mant Johnson, who was 5-2 coming in. I thought Josh, who won on unanimous decision, I thought this was really kind of impressive, composed, professional performance. It was good to watch. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, this is it. So Josh is in the gym. He's one of these guys that is a phenomenal fighter. You know, in the gym, and it's you know, I'm sure he'd admit he sort of struggled to translate that in the cage. You know, he's always he's had some really good performances recently, and has looked very good. And it's just really good to see. Again, he's a very tough opponent, and he comes out and he dominates in the style that he was planning to dominate in. And you know, I know this feels like there's lots of improvements, but I think one of the big improvements was his mindset for this fight. And I think the more he can improve that and make adjustments to every fight going forward now, I think he's going to be a real problem in a year or two time.
Yeah, I was really impressed with his counter striking in this fight. It was really on point. He really got into his flow on that front. Just in terms of the other titles on the show, then Adam Chabdayev beat William Timmis for the lightweight Nordic title as well on the Norwegian portion of the card. There is another fight which didn't have a belt on the line, but I want to talk about because it ended up winning fight of the night, and it was a great fight, and it's also one of your guys, Jack, who has a very interesting background. Mitchell Thorpe, a star of the karate combat world, which I'm sure a lot of you would have watched. He's now fighting MMA. He moved to 2-0. It was a really tough test against Mohamed Safa from Frontline Muay Thai. We expected to see Mitchell striking, which obviously at this level is elite. He's so quick at closing that space, and he kind of explodes off his back foot and lands the right hand. And he was doing that at will. But then Safa was kind of managing to take the shots and turned it at times into really kind of grimy grappling kind of exchanges on the cage. And I said to Mitchell afterwards, that's the sort of fight, Jack, that is a brilliant learning fight for someone like him, because clearly going into every fight, you'd expect the opponent, if you're fighting Mitchell Thorpe, to want to get his hands on him, grapple him, put him on the floor. And he showed some really good takedown defense and stuff in that fight, Jack. So not only was it a great fight, but it was a great learning experience for Mitchell.
Well, that's it. So Mitchell was signed to Karate Combat a couple of years ago, and he never had an amateur fight or a full contact fight ever before. And within Karate Combat, you know, they got some big stars there, and Mitchell's, you know, having to fight guys which have had, you know, 20. You know, he's been off with guys that have had hundreds of fights before, hundreds of full contact. Thai boxing, you know, glory, whatever MMA, professional fights. And, you know, I was sort of discussing with Karate Combat, you know, you've got to give him a bit of time to develop. But it's tough, you know, when you're fighting at that high level, they want, you know, they want to be matching their guys against high level guys. So it was, so what we sort of agreed, Mitchell's still signed to Karate Combat. But whilst, you know, when they don't have a fight for him, you know, in the near vicinity, we're going to continue to get him, you know, this experience in the cage and get his, build his experience up, because he's only probably had, you know, he's 2-0 now in MMA, and I think he's had sort of 4 or 5 fights in Karate Combat. That's it in terms of his full contact experience. So even though he is fighting Karate Combat, he is still learning, still developing. He's still, in my eyes, still an amateur. And you know, but having said that, his striking is super. It's super. Even in Karate Combat, even though it's a striking sport or striking rule set, his opponents are taking him down. You know, that's their plan, to beat him. You know, a lot of them are not staying. You know, they're MMA fighters, and they're not staying standing with him. They're rushing him and taking him down against the pit wall. So we fully expect that in the MMA realm as well. And you know, whilst he is elite in the striking, there, you know, his opponents like Safa, you know, the frontline Muay Thai guys were very confident they had Mitchell Thorpe's number. So they came in super confident, expecting to win. You know, a very good wrestler in Mohamed Safa, and they really brought the fight to Mitchell. That's why it was Fight of the Night. It was a constant battle, you know. You know, in the wrestling aspect, in against the cage, in the striking. You know, Safa was throwing some big bombs as well, and when Mitchell was in and out and cracking with those shots, he was not. You know, he's like a brick wall. He wasn't even moving.
Yeah,
it wasn't showing that. You know,
his neck was like this.
Yeah. He was eating the damage, but he was just, you know, just needs to walk forward, and it was great for both of them. You know, they both learned a lot from that fight. Went to a decision. Mitchell, you know, Mitchell showed some real composure, so some great takedown defense. You know, getting up from, you know, being taken down, that type of stuff, and he's really impressive from both of those guys. So they got the Fight of the Night award, well deserved, and I'd love to see both of them back soon.
100%. Katie, what do you think Mitchell can do in MMA? Because we've seen in high level MMA, the karate kind of background can get you right to the top. Obviously, we've seen people like Michael Page and Stephen Thompson and Lyoto Machida have all come from karate, and there's no way around it. Mitchell Thorpe's striking is elite. I mean, as I say, the way that he closes space so quickly is terrifying. To see it in person, is even more scary than watching it on video. But obviously MMA isn't just about striking. He's got to round out that game, but he seems to me to have a real opportunity to do something special in the sport.
I think there's two types of people. When you've come from a certain discipline or a certain background, there's the people who want to learn all the other parts of MMA and want to put themselves back as being a beginner on the ground or jiu-jitsu or what have you, and the people who want to rely on the thing that they're good at and just improve that and hope that means that they won't be exposed in other areas of their game. And I think we can see that Mitchell's definitely working on all areas of MMA. Like you said, he's a proven elite striker, but we can see just the difference in the way he was able to get back up. When he was taken down, he wasn't controlled at all. And like you said, his takedown defense, even from the last fight, which was only one show ago, I think he'd come on leaps and bounds. So he's obviously putting effort into the stuff that he's, you know, isn't his forte. And that is where I think you can become a really good fighter. So yeah, he also seems to have fallen in love with MMA. Jack, you'll probably know more, but he was very keen to be on the next show and to, you know, for MMA to be in his future as well as karate combat. Yeah,
I think you know, a couple of fights I would expect Mitchell to do the takedowns when, you know, he'd be able to mix it up. He's coming on leaps and bound, and some of like a lot of the guys we talked about, not, you know, these guys coming through, they really want it. And they're so coachable as well, and they're just learning all the time, just absorbing everything around from all the experienced guys that are now coaching them. It's really great to see the sport, you know, having these characters, have got these young up and comers that are really taking it seriously, and it's just such UK right now is just such a breeding ground for these top level athletes.
And of course, Cage Warriors Academy, a breeding ground for bringing them to the wider public. One other fight I want to mention, because it's the other performance winner on the night, Harry Hilden won knockout of the night. 13 seconds is all he needed to win against Alexander Kittleson. He came out looking incredibly crisp with his hands, and just as I was saying that, he landed a big right hand, and that was it. So well done, Harry. You looked tremendous on the night as well. Are there any other fights, guys, that you want to talk about before we move on to talk about the next show? Because obviously that's something else we want to promote, October the 5th. Returning to Chart Hall. Anything else you want to mention, Jack, in terms of fights or fighters?
Listen, every you know, as I said, it's a privilege. Every single fighter on the night, you know, we had, I think, 28 fights. So 50, how many is that? 56 fighters. Every single one of them came to fight, and it's a privilege to see that, you know, that they're there wanting to prove to themselves how good they are. Test their skill set, test what they've been training, and you know, it's just a privilege to be involved and with these guys, and just see them perform and just, you know, develop. And every fight was was a brilliant fight. I can't pick my favourite fight because they were just fantastic.
Absolutely. Right then, should we talk about October the 5th then? Because this is the event that's just gone. Now we're looking ahead to the next event, October the 5th at the Chart Hall. You've already alluded to it, Jack, that Carl Mullins is going to be on the card. So can you give us a little sneak preview, a little exclusive as to what might be on, on the show?
We've got Jake Smythe. So he was previously fighting at middleweight. He's been he's been fighting at lots of shows around the country, tested his skill set against the best middleweights. He's impressed on the Cage Warriors Academy show. He's now looking to move up to light heavy, and we offered him the Carl Mullins fight, and he's accepted. So that's going to be a fantastic fight. Jake Smythe's got really good striking and great wrestling. Very well rounded. It's going to be interesting to see how Carl deals with that. Be interested to see what Jake can do with Carl's power. So that's after Carl's performance at the last weekend. I think everyone's going to be excited to see him back in the cage. So that fight's really exciting to me.
Absolutely, 100%. Tickets available now, as you can see on the Cage Warriors Academy website. Katie, by way of kind of moving on to other things, you were both at the O2 last night watching what turned out to be a brilliant Cage Warriors event. And this Academy show has sent so many fighters from Colchester, if you like, from this event, not just onto the main Cage Warriors show, but we've also obviously seen the likes of Corey McKenna in the UFC and Chanel Dyer in the PFL. This really is, in terms of reasons to rock up on October the 5th, this is where you see the stars of the future first, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's why I always say you need to be at Colchester. You want to be able to say you saw this UFC superstar in their first amateur fight and you followed their whole career. This is your opportunity. And we saw it last night. There was Reby Hudson on the card, Tommy Brunning on the card, Craig Edwards on the card. And all of these people have come through Cage Warriors Academy, and I feel like it must be a far less daunting experience for them being on Cage Warriors after being on the Academy show, because of the production, because of how, it's just a slightly smaller venue. Everything else is set up very similarly. If that's where you want to be, you would be mad not to be trying to get on Jack's show, I think.
100%. And obviously other names, there were a lot of them on last night, but Jimmy Quinn, who's now like a human highlight reel.
Jimmy, yeah.
He started with a highlight reel on Cage Warriors Academy with the spinning heel kick to the face, which went viral around the world. So yeah, certainly the place to be if you want to see the stars of the future. I want to talk to you, Jack, about another one of your guys at BKK. He was fighting on Cage Warriors last night. Again, we talked about narrative earlier, but Craig Edwards, this is one hell of a story. Got his first win on Cage Warriors last night in pretty much perfect style. He won, I think it was 30-40 seconds, something like that. Landed a lead right elbow, knocked the guy out, and jumped over the cage and celebrated as you would. And then revealed to Katie afterwards that was going to be it. That was his last fight. So talk to us a little bit about Craig.
So Craig is he's a consummate professional. He's always been in the gym. He's always improving. And honestly, the last sort of 2 years, he's really come into his own. He's fought a who's who in MMA. He's fought, Mason Jones. Went on to be a UFC star. He's fought Ben
Lactar,
and he's fought some of the very best around, and he's on a 5-fight win streak now. He just come off a win against a top Brazilian that is beating the likes of Vincent Luque and others, and he just come off again another TKO over there, and leading up into his performance, he's just been a consummate professional through the camp. We had an excellent plan for winning this fight, and he just drilled it. Every training session was working on landing those shots in his sparring, all the time, and we drilled it backstage, and then he just went out and executed. And as a coach, you can't ask for much more. And also it's quite rare that the fighter, there's only a special few guys, and the guys that really make it to the top, that they listen to the instructions, they go out and they believe in the game plan, and they go out and execute. And last night Craig went out and executed. He was fighting an absolute monster. A guy that, the Cage Warriors were, for good reason. There was a lot of hyperbole around the guy's power. He's an absolute monster. He throws some big shots, and we knew it was going to be a tough test, and we knew, I think this is one of the reasons why Craig executed so well. There was no margin for error there. If he didn't execute the plan, there could be a really serious consequences. So that's what he did. He went out and took the fight to him, and landed those beautiful elbows, which is what we were drilling, and and it paid off. He really defended himself really well with his high guard and those elbows, and the big back elbow was the one that knocked him out, and it was beautiful. He's just Craig's such a hard worker and such a nice guy. Just to see him go out and with a performance like that to top his career off was just, it's things of dreams, really. And it's beautiful to see.
You can actually go back and watch. You say drilling it backstage. There's footage of Craig working on exactly that with Sean on the pads before the fight. So thoughts became things in that fight. Kate, you were the journalist to whom Craig revealed that he was retiring, and obviously it sort of came out of the blue to you. You followed him his whole career. You know him personally. He's a lovely bloke, is Craig. In a sport that is so cruel at times and unforgiving in terms of the way careers end, to be able to do that and then walk away is pretty much the perfect way to do it, isn't it?
And I think for him, his other Cage Warriors cards haven't gone his way, or fights haven't gone his way, or the way he wanted them to go. This was him, like he talked about righting wrongs, almost his redemption. And, I think some of his fights haven't been televised, but for all the ones I've seen, that was his finest performance. And it seems like he's content to say, like, that's my redemption. I'm proud of that performance, and that's it from me. But seeing him walk out to the cage, Jack, to your point about what a killer that his opponent was, he looked like he was off to the shops for a pint of milk. Like, I've never seen anyone more nonchalant. And I was watching thinking, I hope he knows he's about to be in a fight.
Well, this is the thing, that we knew, like Craig knew this was, he was fighting an absolute monster, and but I think he was just very confident in his plan and his the game plan, and he was very confident in his own skill set, and that's something which we've been working on Craig's whole career, to give him that confidence, because we all know that seeing him, we know he could do things like that every day of the week if he believed in himself. And sometimes that's been a problem, because he does that to people in the gym all the time. And the fact that he went out there with that self-belief and belief in the game plan was just amazing to see. And this is what you want to see as a coach. And it was just amazing for him to finish his career with such a performance that has shown the world what he can really do. That's we've all known it, okay, but he hasn't been able to show it, and to show the world, with that excellent performance is just amazing. It's I'm really, really pleased for him.
Right, one more thing then. Speaking of showing the world what you can do, talent come out of this region. There's a young man called Arnold Allen, who is probably the greatest talent we've ever seen come out of this region. Obviously, one of the top featherweight fighters in the world. He opens the card in this mega event in Manchester on Saturday, UFC 304. He's fighting Giga Chikadze. obviously, Jack, you're heavily involved with Arnold. You've been there since the beginning. How are you feeling about this one? Because I spoke to Arnold on Friday. His whole career really in UFC has been wins. He's won 10 in a row, and then he had that great fight with Max, and Max had his hand raised, and then obviously there was a controversy last time out against Evloev. Controversy both in terms of the knees, were they legal, were they not, and also with the decision. A lot of people, me included, thought that Arnie deserved to win, but he didn't. So he goes into this fight against a really elite striker, riding a 2-fight losing skid, if you like, Jack. So how are you feeling as someone in Arnold's team going into this fight, and how do you think he'll do?
I think with Arnold, the last 2 fights, with the Max Holloway fight, I think we were out strategized. Max came in looking probably the best he's ever looked, with a phenomenal game plan. And I think he changed his fighting style because of how good Arnold is. So Max likes to stand in the center and trade with people. He did not want to do that with Arnold. Okay, what his tactic was to land and evade. So there was no counter for Arnold, and that made it difficult for Arnold to win. And I think there's a couple of things. This is Arnold's first ever 5-round fight against the 5-round king, and I think that got to Arnold a little bit. But now, I mean, it's a blessing in disguise. He knows he can go 5 rounds with the 5-round king, so that's never going to be a doubt in his mind again. So that was a phenomenal. I thought Arnold gave a good account of himself, but there's so much more that Arnold can do. And likewise, the last fight, he fought Evloev, who everyone in the featherweight division is evading. No one wants to fight for him. No one's saying the name. Ilya Topuria, not said his name.
Yeah.
He's talking about all these other people, not said Evloev's name. No one wants to fight the guy. Okay. And Arnold fought him, and I think he beat him. He countered Evloev's wrestling, and Arnold knocked the guy out in the fight. Okay. Yeah. There was obviously controversy about the knees. I think they were legal. I think most people think they're legal. And there was regardless of that, I feel like Arnold won that fight. He should be going into this fight on the back of a win, and I think he believes that also. So none of the fights he's going to be given are going to be easy fights. Giga's obviously an elite level striker, but so is Arnold, and I think Arnold has the power edge. He's definitely faster. I think he's a better striker than Giga, and we're going to prove it on Saturday.
This fight, Katie, obviously they're expecting it's the main card opener, isn't it? Which is traditionally the spot they put a fight they think is going to be sensational. And on paper, clearly Arnold's a brilliant striker. Giga is top level, a glory kickboxer striker. But this feels to me like the sort of fight in which Arnold Allen can really make a big statement, similar in a way maybe to the Dan Hooker, but in a different way. It feels like this might be a great fight for Arnold.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a statement, and I think he's going to get the finish. I really do think Giga. Everybody talks about his stand-up skills, but I think how better to compare than to see them against each other. Seeing them both against Calvin Kattar as well, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. It gives me a lot of confidence.
Yeah, because of course that's the only defeat for Giga in the UFC was to Calvin, and clearly Arnold beat Calvin using movement.
I know MMA doesn't work like that, but
yeah. Jack, have you been up at 3 a.m. with Arnold getting him ready? How are you feeling about walking out to fight at 3 a.m. with your man?
We've adjusted his sleep schedule and everything. I think he's now performing in his training sessions at sort of 3 a.m. like phenomenally. He feels like he's most awake there, and he's just honestly he's peaked. No excuses here. He's very ready. Very he's got he's looked super sharp, and the sleep schedule is going to be bang on point. So it is a shame that the card's so late. The only other event I've been to when they've done that, is David Haye versus McRanelli, and that was it was England versus Wales, that fight 2018, and the fans were absolutely smashed. when I got to the, I went to Cage Rage of that evening. I think that finished at 11. Then I drove to the O2 to watch the Dave Hay fight. And when I got there, everyone, all the English and Welsh fans are absolutely smashed. So we're gonna see how sober they are when we get to the AM in Manchester. But yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be experience.
It's going to be an endurance test for everyone watching and fighting on the card. But Jack, Arnold's going to be world champion, though, isn't he? I mean, the kid is so good.
That's what we said from day one, and I still think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time now. We'll get past Giga, then we've got see what they give us. We've been asking for Brian Ortega for years. You haven't been given that fight. Likewise,
moving up now, though, isn't he? I thought Ortega's moving up.
Yeah. So we've been asking for these fights. This potentially is Volkanovski, but we'll see. We'll see what happens after this fight. We've got to get through Saturday. Giga's going to be a very tough test. Anything can happen in MMA, but I was going to do the business, and we'll see what's next. But he's going to be champion one day.
It'd be great if he could openly call for these fights, or offer to jump in on social media, on short notice for people. I feel like he's had the highest risk, lowest reward fights, with Evloev, that nobody wanted to face him. When it came to the interim title, that should have gone to Arnold. I just feel like I want him in the forefront of people's minds when these fights come up.
Well, when he knocks Giga out, we're gonna something's got to happen.
Yeah,
but
ideally, knock Giga out on Saturday, and then say, bring me the head of Ilia Topuria. That'd be great. Because Arnold doesn't do trash talk, does he? It's not him. I've spoken to him about this before, and he says he feels a bit silly doing it. But that hopefully
he can respectfully do it.
I mean, he's very GSP though, isn't he? That's exactly the way GSP did it. He never talked trash. He never kind of did all this sort of stuff. He just was excellent his whole career, and then it got to a point where he couldn't be denied. And hopefully that's what we'll see from Arnold.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who's available next as well. I think it's good. Regardless of what happens, it's going to be a big fight. So he's up there. He's up there in the mix.
Superb. Right then. I said half an hour for this recording. We're approaching an hour. Typically, when you get three people who love fighting, get talking. Let's finish then, Jack, just with looking ahead again to October the 5th then. So just explain for people who've not been to one of your shows what the whole ethos is and what they can expect when they rock up on October the 5th in Colchester.
The purpose of the platform is to provide these young athletes, these young amateurs, somewhere to hone their craft. They get all the experiences as you would get from fighting at the top level in the UFC. So you get it's the same people, so you get the same hand wrappers, the same medics, the same referees, the same judges. You get it is the same. The same. You get treated exactly the same backstage, and everything runs like clockwork. So all of the fighters get the best experience, and they also get the fair matches. So it's a 50-50 fight. And this is what I try and explain to people. It's not a fight if you know you're going to win. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. It's not a fight. You are not gaining anything. If you know you're going to win, either your opponent is not wanting to win, or is not capable of winning. It's the same thing. So it's not a fight. It's a dance or a choreography, whatever you want to call it. It's not a fight. It's not in the description. The fight is 50-50 fight. Both guys coming to win, and that's what you get from Cage Warriors Academy. You don't get that elsewhere. And what it makes for is a phenomenal entertainment, but also you get to see the stars of the future being developed. We talked about the guys that the likes of Ian Gary that's been on the show, Oben Elliott, Ivana Siric. You've got all these guys that have within a year or 2 years of fighting on the Academy show, they're now top stars in the UFC. Corey McKenna's another example. There's many, but this is, you are getting the best fighters from around Europe fighting each other. You can't ask for much more. It's going to be a phenomenal card. And we've got the likes of Ben Edwards fighting on there. Carl Mullins, Jacob Gifford. The list just goes on, and these guys are phenomenal athletes. And as I say, it's the stars. It's where the stars of the future that develops.
Absolutely, Katie. I know you love covering these shows. You're probably already excited about this one, but you're going to be there, I assume, October 5th.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Superb. Well, just make sure, guys, that you get your tickets. They're available now on the Cage Warriors Academy website. You can see that scrolling across the bottom. I hope you've enjoyed this first review show, Cage Warriors Academy Southeast 35. We'll be back with Cage Warriors Academy Southeast 36 at the Chart Hall in Colchester on October the 5th. Do not miss it. Thanks very much for joining us, and please join us next time when we're reviewing the next show.